board, and Zoe for setting this all up, Ken for the invitation. Really glad to be here. This is my second or third time now presenting to Beacon over the years, and I love the engagement, and I'm going to really encourage all of you to continue to do that today. So let me do my own screen share here. Can everybody see this?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. All right. So let's see, as we get going, virtual influence. This, where we all are right now, that's not going away. This is the new reality. For a while, 2 years ago, we were all hoping things would go back to normal. I think we have all come to the realization that that's not going to happen. And we need to be every bit as good, if not better, here than we are in person, because this is the first impression that 99 point something percent of the world has of us. And if you want to get to the point where you do get the handshake, that has to be earned. That's not the first impression anymore. That's later and a maybe, depending on what happens here. So that's what we want to look at today, because you know that in person, you're amazing. We need to make sure that that translates to the screen, that in-person excellence is visible, is audible, is felt from the minute that you say hello when you hit the join button for Zoom or Teams or whatever it happens to be. This is the reaction that we want when we are interviewing, when we are presenting, when we're doing something else in the virtual world. We want to make this kind of impression on someone. Now, lest you think I'm just sort of exaggerating, this is actually the subject line of an email that I received when I was doing a virtual conference presentation a little while ago. And it was from the organizer. It was from a California Business Women's Conference, 60-something thousand. And the executive director is the one who wrote this to me. And the only line in the subject, in the body of the message that she sent was, "I should have hired you to help me with my talk." And I thought to myself, yep, but that's not the point. But this is the impression that we want to have on everybody. It's not enough to be the sort of unchallenged campaign of mediocrity kind of standard that the world has set for ourselves in Zoom, in virtual, on video conferences. Good enough might have been okay a year ago, not anymore. Good enough is not good enough. The nice thing, if you want to look at it from a positive spin, is that most people still at best settle for good enough on video. So if you show up and you inspire this kind of reaction, then you are so far leaps and bounds above everybody else in projecting yourself as a leader and someone who should be hired, someone who should be put in front of the team, the clients, the executives, the boards, whoever it happens to be. Your competition in this front is low. So let's figure out how to destroy the competition and make sure that you shine every time you join in that virtual world. Because this is what most people's reaction is when they show up on video. And this is not the reaction that you want to inspire in your audience. So how do we do that? I want you to be mindful of one thing today. I don't do tips and tricks. If you just want tips and tricks for Zoom, go to Google, go to YouTube. There's gazillions of people who offer 2 or 3 tips, tricks. I hate those words. My goal is about impact. And there's 3 levels of impact, consciously and unconsciously, that you're going to have on your audience with every engagement. And those 3 levels are, number 1, you're going to have an emotional impact. It's going to be a gut level instinctive response that people have. Number 2, you're going to have a cognitive impact. You're going to make people think something one way or another. And it's usually seeking to justify what the gut level instinct has already decided. And ultimately, you're going to have a behavioral impact, because the way you show up, what you say it, how you present yourself is going to lead to their decision. And that decision in particular for job seekers is going to be, do I call this person again? Do I want to meet with them twice? Or if you're in sales or if you're in whatever else, their decision where they go from here is going to be dependent upon how you show up. So we want to look at some things where we're going to talk about some things where maybe you're going to think to yourself, I've heard this somewhere else. But the part 2 is, it never really processed why it matters. I always had an instinct about something, but I could never put my finger on it. We're going to put the finger on it so that you go, oh, that explains it. Now I see where I've been getting in my own way all this time. And it's time to get out of your own way. So my invitation to all of you is to be present and participate. Turn your cameras on. I like to see your smiles. I like to scroll back and forth through faces as I'm presenting, because this world today is about showing up. Most people multitask as they go. And the definition of multitask, or at least what the definition should be in Webster's 2022 dictionary, should be paying attention to everything except you. That's the definition of multitasking. So just by turning on your cameras and being visually present says to the other person, I'm here. Already, you're beyond 50%, 80% or more of the other people in your sphere. And so what does participation look like? I'm going to invite you to use the chat freely. I'm great at keeping one eye on the threads as it's going. We'll have some group open brainstorms. If you want to comment to me, if you want to comment to anybody else, that's totally fine. Ask me questions there. Happy to, I don't wait till the end. I'd rather you ask the questions as they occur to you organically. We'll address them in the moment as it's relevant. Feel free to interact with each other. You know, if I make a comment and Ford's thinking, oh, hey, Zoe, that's like the time when we put it in there. Interact with each other through it. It lets me know what resonates with you. And then again, I can continue to run with that. Now, if you are a genetic or otherwise a conditioned hand raiser, 12 years of Catholic school or whatever it happens to be, go ahead and in your reactions button at the bottom, which may be in your more under the 3 dots, you have the emojis, the thumbs up, the happy faces, which, by the way, feel free to give them to me anytime you want. But beyond that, there's a more specific hand raise hand button. And if you click that, it pops you up to the front of the line and it'll leave your hand there so that I see that you have something that you want to share or ask or whatever, until you click actively the lower hand button. So it just lets me know that you have something more pressing to address. Or frankly, unmute and blurt. If you want to just interrupt me and ask a question, I'm a Jersey Italian. You got to work a lot harder than that to either fluster me or offend me or whatever else. So feel free to just unmute and say, hey, Laura, do you mind? Could you explain this? Or is that like this? Or I don't really understand. Just come on out and share. I'm not that formal. So feel free as you see fit. That being said, if you're not talking in the moment, just make sure that your microphone is on mute so that if you're enjoying your lunch, having Doritos, or there's a car going by, or your dog's freaking out, or whatever it happens to be, it doesn't interrupt everybody else. So from there, this is the key right here. The impression you make on video is your individual and or your organizational brand. This is about branding. Everything we talk about today is your brand. I don't mean brands like Q-Tip, Pepsi, Disney, Nike. Your individual brand, who you are as a contributor, as a leader, and in representing whatever organization is paying you. How do we define a brand? A good friend of mine who I just worked with this morning on another project, Alan Kersner, who's a professor of marketing at the Temple University. I like his definition best. He defines it as the brand is the promise of an experience and the experience of a promise delivered. I'm going to say that again. A brand is the promise of an experience and the experience of a promise delivered. It's your reputation. When you are, whether you're interviewing or pitching or presenting or whatever it happens to be, what do you are claimed to promise as far as what life is like if you work with me? And then when they do actually work with you, is what they experience the same as what you claimed it would be? How consistent are you? And how does that translate to the virtual world? Most people have never thought of this. And I highly recommend that you do, especially virtually, because the truth is that you need to be even better on screen than you are in person. I did some work with an insurance company, and the executive, the SVP who was running that show said, the biggest challenge for me, Laura, is that I know that if I can just shake somebody's hand, I can close them. I said, there's a problem with that, isn't there? He said, yeah, I can't shake their hand virtually. Now you have to earn that opportunity. You got to impress them here to get them to be willing to have the second meeting, to go to Starbucks or meet at their office or do whatever, to be willing to shake your hand. You have to be better here to make it worth my time to drive and to do this and that and everything else, frankly. The gap, of course, is that, in Zoom or whatever other platform you're using, you normally have the option to rename yourself. And most people, I think, subconsciously would prefer to remove the name overall and instead substitute it with a disclaimer that says, I just want you to know, if you met me in person, you'd be impressed. Just going to put that out there. Again, a year ago, that might have flown. We're way past that. So today we're going to close that gap.
Hey, Laura.
Yes. Hi, Megan.
Hi. I have a question for you.
Sure.
So I can gauge my detail of notes.
Yep.
Will the presentation be available for us after today?
You will have access to the recording. I don't share the slides because it's mostly pictures, frankly.
Right. Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Sure.
That helps.
Yes. Thank you for asking. Okay. So what do we need to show? A couple of real simple things. You have to project confidence. You have to have a commanding presence, not demanding, commanding. Do you command your space? Do you own the room? Do you own the screen? It's the same idea, just translated a little bit differently. And you have to come across as authentic. How many people feel like on video, I don't know how to be myself? That's a problem. Authenticity has to translate. And the top 4 fears about being on video, there's been studies on this. It's kind of funny. It's like our inner 7th grader takes over. No matter how many years we've been out of middle school, thank God. The top 4 fears are, number 1, I don't like the way I look. It's funny how we don't care about, we may care, but we get over it when we're in person. But as soon as we have to see ourselves, it's like, oh, what's with my hair? I have a zit, I have a wrinkle, and God should never allow you to have zits and wrinkles at the same time. That's my argument, but we'll talk about that another time. But I don't like the way I look piece. We get silly and then we get self-conscious and then we want to hide and turn our cameras off. Would you ever hide in public because you had, whatever else going on in the day? Ridiculous. But that head trash gets in the way of how we show up. We think I don't have the right equipment. Excuse, get the right equipment. And I don't mean NBC quality cameras and things, but update a little here, a little there, much of what we're going to talk about today is small changes that make a huge difference. That's the key. I don't know how to be myself on camera. Something about that little black dot staring at us just sucks the life out of us and kind of go into just makes you want to say Bueller, anyone. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, shame on you. You should not have been allowed to graduate from the 80s. Go back and watch Ferris Bueller's Day Off. You should know all of your John Hughes 1980s teen flicks. We need to have that energy. Your personality has to come through. And of course, the challenge of I don't know how to engage my audience is also another piece. So we'll catch a little bit on that one today, but it will address other ways to get to that one later, because you do have to be good at that too. It's not all about you, no matter how much we'd like to think so. Let's see. Yeah, great. Looking at the comments here. Good. And feel free to write things like, ha, ha, ha. That's funny. It feeds my ego. But of course, if everybody else, can chime in with that as well. All right. Recently, great. Yes. Don't try to impress people or overshow value. If you're trying too hard, that's not better than trying not hard enough. Be you. How do we let that person come out? So let's talk about the mindset for a second and the virtual brand. We got to shift this. You have 2 choices. You're either going to choose your brand and then figure out how to make it come through here in the virtual world, or you're going to leave it to chance. And this is what most people do. They sit where they are, they click the join button, and then whatever happens, happens. That's rolling the dice on letting your brand create you instead of you creating your brand. So let's brainstorm for a second. We're going to fix that. What qualities or characteristics do you want your audience? I use the word audience very broadly. I just mean whoever you're engaging with virtually. What qualities or characteristics do you want the audience to associate with you and your brand? And Michael, we're going to get to a lot of your question in a few minutes. So in the chat, share 1 word. Don't give me paragraphs. Single words, adjectives or nouns. Good. Genuine. Great. Thank you, Barbara. Okay. You want engagement or engaging, authentic, organized, authentic, friendly. Yes. Having integrity. Anything else? Professional, passionate, tech savvy. Yeah, that one's always ironic sometimes, isn't it? Able to help solve the problem. Okay, so helpful, knowledgeable, engaged, relatable. Yeah, these are great. So here is the $60,000 question, or whatever the number is supposed to be. All these qualities, what do they look like? What do they sound like? Because those are all subjective interpretations of how you show up, not just the quality of your answers content-wise. It's also in your delivery. Sure, it's if you tell stories and if you have data and facts to back it up. But beyond that, who are you as the storyteller? What vibe do people get from you? Because all of the qualities of what they see, what they hear, what your presence is, will lead them to determine whether or not they think you are all of those things in the chat. Because let's face it, you can tell them that you are, but the more you claim it without evidence, the more they go, yeah, I'll be the judge of that. Yeah. I mean, anybody have a friend who's like, oh, I'm funny. I'm really funny. Oh, let me tell you this joke. I'm such a good joke teller. I'm real. And you go, oh no, that's going to be painful. This guy's so not going to be funny. The more you profess excellence in something, often the worse it becomes. So you want to make sure that let them come to their own conclusions based on the way that you show up. Yes, Miriam, we all know that friend. I had a friend who wanted to be a screenwriter in Los Angeles. And so he'd send me drafts of scenes he'd write. He'd be like, oh my God, you're going to die laughing when you read this one. Please, I can't wait for you to read it. You're going to die. I was dying laughing as I was reading. I'm going, okay, the fact that you said die that many times makes me believe I probably will, but not from laughter. Yeah. So, all right. Now, ask yourself, you wrote down those qualities, and be honest. Scale of 1 to 10. How well does your on-screen presence fully and consistently reflect those brand qualities? Scale of 1 to 10. Regularly and fully, consistently. If you don't want to put this in the chat, I'm okay with that, but definitely answer it for yourself. And then ask what would make that score higher. Because we need to make the decision. Remember, is it a dart or dice? Are you choosing your brand and making it happen, or are you leaving it to chance? A couple things we need to do to make sure. Number one, stop using Wi-Fi. It is not your friend. Wi-Fi is the enemy. I don't know about you. In my house, there's always at least 2, if not 3 or 4 people all on Wi-Fi at the same time. My teenager doing homework, my 5-year-old on his tablet watching Mickey Mouse videos, my husband doing another Zoom with some of his colleagues or clients or whoever it is. So you want to make sure that you always plug in. I don't know about you. I cannot afford to lose the bandwidth arm wrestling competition to Mickey Mouse on an iPad. That doesn't work. I have to have perfect connectivity all the time. I'm here talking to you. You don't want to be sitting there going, oh, wait, Laura, you, I think you froze. Hopefully she'll come back in a minute. That kills my brand. That sucks the energy out of everything I was trying to share. That's inconsistent. That's unreliable. Are those qualities that you want associated with your brand? No. And if you're about to say, well, yeah, but my laptop doesn't have Ethernet ports like that. Yes, it does. It's called a dongle. Little port like that. So the Ethernet cable goes into it. If you don't have an Ethernet cable, and you probably do in your basement, a closet, or the attic, in a dusty box of old wires that you never thought you'd need again, but couldn't bring yourself to throw out. Carol's nodding. Yep, we all have one of those. So go dig it out. Otherwise, again, Amazon, $10, get yourself an Ethernet cable. And then this side goes into, for my laptop, which only has USB-C ports, plug it in. You can call it a dongle, an adapter. My husband likes to call these things gazintas, because this part goes into your computer and then the Ethernet cable goes into here. Get it? But I'm bumping. Thank you very much. I'll be here all day. Now that was funny. Come on. All right. So with that, Wi-Fi is number 1. Yes. Hardwire connection. Thank you for it. Absolutely. Number 2, let's make the camera love you. This is what I like to call a digital hair day, because true or false, and I do want the answer in the chat, true or false, when you have a good hair day, everything else just goes better. That's just the reality of life. I don't care who you are. A good hair day is a good day. Everything else is relative from there. So what is it about the false? Oh, Rich, I got to look. I can't see your face here. I got to find Rich. Okay. That means, so for some people, it may be in any hair day is a good day. That's a different thing, but that's completely up to you. All right. Now I understand, Rich. So that's a whole different issue. But Don't remember. I can't help memories. That's a different ballgame. But a good hair day is a good day. So we want to have a digital good hair day so that when you show up, it always puts you at your best, because most people use their equipment in a way that actually makes them look worse than they really are. That's a digital bad hair day. Why would you do that to yourself voluntarily? Let's watch this for a second. I'm going to stop my share. And what in the chat, share with me, if I ran the rest of the program today about virtual influence, making that impression, having that impact, 3 levels, about leadership, but I ran it from down here, how does that change your impression of me? Just gut level reflex. What changes? Put it in the chat. What's the first thoughts, words that come to mind? Feel free to turn off the PC filter. What comes to mind? How does it change? Okay. Lack of confidence, like I'm hiding something, I sunk, it's incongruous, not exacting enough. It looks small, lacks authority, not positive, doesn't bother you. Okay, Darren's nicer than most people. Well, what are the odds that you're going to be interviewing with Darren or interviewing with the other 90% of the people who just were slightly less forgiving, shall we say? Now, notice he said it doesn't bother me. Did he say it's good? No. Did he say it's better? No. So at best, you broke even. That's not good odds. That's not good odds. So here's what we want to do. Hold up one hand. Everybody play with me. Hold up a hand. Wave at each other. There you go. Do this. Make the itty bitty sign with your fingers. There you go. Put it on top of your head. And then from there, you're going to reach forward and adjust your camera so that your index finger touches the top of your screen. There should be a lot less space between the top of your head and the top of the screen than between your chin and the bottom of the screen. And do not do this. You reach forward, you adjust it, and then you do this. Don't cheat. This is cheating. That's cheating. This is not my first rodeo. Sit wherever you're going to be comfortable and then adjust as necessary from there. This is how you own the screen. Here, the screen owns me. Here, I own the screen. If we were sitting across the table from each other, be it in Starbucks, somebody's office, interview, conference room, whatever it is, this is what you would see. Can you imagine being in a conference room and seeing this across from you at the table? That's creepy, not helpful. So own it. And plus, what's one of the most uncomfortable things about being virtual? You think to yourself, well, I can't see people's body language. I can't read their body language. I can't get their sense. Well, they think the same about you. So when you have a little more space and you show them from mid-torso on up, you're allowing them to read you better. That gives them a feeling of comfort, safety, makes you more relatable, helps you connect with them. They feel like they get you better. That instills the positive feelings that you want them to have about you. Be generous in what you share from there. All right, moving on. Let's do this. All right. What does trust look like? Some of you are in things like asset management and protection, data protection. This guy looks like he's in witness protection. Lighting matters. This doesn't say trust me. This says you don't need to know what I look like. Sure, trust me with your company. Trust me with your data. Trust me with your assets. Trust me with your healthcare. Trust me with your family. But you don't need to know what I look like. Your lighting matters. I want you to see something. Now, I'm here in my studio, whether you've got me on, what do you call it, in speaker mode or gallery mode, et cetera. But this is not what it looks like when I just walk into my room and turn on the light. And by the way, this studio that you're looking at, this is the guest room of my house. This is not some fancy studio, over at RVN TV in Cherry Hill or wherever else it is. This is my guest room. It turns from the bat cave into whatever other room on other days when somebody's here to stay for the weekend, et cetera. It's a backdrop, banner, et cetera. We'll talk about backgrounds in a second. But otherwise, I want you to see what happens. I'm going to stop my video for a second. If I were to turn off more or less everything except the overhead light. Adjust this. All right. 3, 2, 1. We're going to see this here. There we go. This is what it looks like if I just walk in my room and turn on the light. Is it good enough? For what? It's different, isn't it? It's okay. Anybody think they're going to get their next job or promotion by being okay? Is that the brand that you want? Now, got a ring light of sorts. Everybody knows the words ring light. And frankly, you can, cannibalize other lights or lamps from other parts of the room if you want. If you're not going to invest, I'm going to just turn off my camera 1 second so I can reach above here and turn on the ring light, which is literally a ring of LED lights. They come in all different sizes. They have a dimmer switch on them, et cetera, so you can adjust it. Now I'm turning off my camera to turn it on because here's the thing. If you need to reach above, whether you're closing or opening a window, et cetera, no one wants the armpit shot. That's not good branding or networking. Don't reach above your camera. Let me do this. Turn that off. All right, turn this back on. Okay, fix my setting here. So now, all right, my face is well lit, but it's still a little stark. It's not quite the warmth that I want it to have. I don't like it. Is it good enough? Oh, it's a step above earlier good enough, but I'm not satisfied. So what I ended up doing, again, to create the warmth, remember everything we're talking about, the emotional, cognitive, and behavioral impact you're having. How does it make you feel when we're at these different stages with the cameras, with lights, et cetera? So what I have are called softbox lights. They're not expensive. You can see this sort of here. It's like a sideways umbrella with a bulb inside of it. And I bought a pair. You can get them for like $60 a pair, that is. I'm not aiming them at me. I'm aiming them behind me. And at that point, it just kind of warms up the room. The whole space is there. I'm presenting all the time. Groups like this, conferences, trainings for half day, full day, et cetera. It needs to be 100%. This is the feeling that I want people to have, not the, well, it's close enough. It's kind of blurry. It's kind of shadowy. It's kind of dingy. It's kind of this or that. I want you to feel like you just walked into my office. We turned on the light and we had a completely professional, comfortable exchange. So little details. So the light that I suggest, what I can do is I'll share a list of my recommended equipment afterward. I'll put it in the chat and you can all download it from there. So there's the ring light in front, and these are called soft box lights. This brand is Pro Photos or Photo Pro Studio, something like that. But they're all more or less the same. Given we're not looking for super duper whatever professional grade equipment, you just need to light up your space. Oh, and here's a tip for those of you with glasses. Instead of having one big sort of ring light or something smack in front of you, get two smaller if necessary. Put them on 45-degree angles. And then you don't get the reflection with the little circles from the light in your lenses. So a little hack there. All right. And then moving along. So lighting matters. You do not want to be backlit like this guy. So if you've got a big window behind you, please close it. Here's another hack. If you have the big window in front of you and as the sun is moving over the course of the day, you realize that the light changes, you end up with the line going across your face. You're sort of chasing the shadow area so that the sun isn't right on you. Easiest momentary hack. Get one of those tall kitchen garbage bags, the white ones that are kind of translucent. And they are the static electricity from them. You put it on the window. Still lets the light through, but it doesn't blind you and you don't get that washed out, sun-drenched look, especially if you've got blinds or things where lines come through, mutes all of that. Still allows light in, but isn't ugly, distracting, and doesn't make the camera fight. All right, let's see. We'll talk about backgrounds in a second, Ken. Yes. So speaking of which, excellent question. Ken was a plant. I made him ask that question. No, that was organic. So let's talk about virtual backgrounds. I'm not a huge fan for a number of reasons. Let's do an experiment. For the moment, I want you to not think about pink elephants. Don't think about pink elephants, everybody. Ready? Go. What are you thinking about? Pink elephants, right? So what does a virtual background say? A virtual background says, don't look at what's behind me. I don't want you to know what's back there. Don't think about it. Don't ask questions. Don't wonder. I don't want you to know. If one of the qualities that you wrote down that you want to convey is authentic, I don't think it helps. Now, there's a time and a place. We don't know where you are at certain times. It's the nature of the world. If you're having construction done behind you, or there's a mess for whatever reason, if you can't clean it up, or sometimes a virtual background is better than nothing. The blur option is often the lesser of all evils. But I'm not a fan. And please don't use the ones where, you're in the beach with the palm trees blowing or over the Golden Gate Bridge or something. That's just silly. Nobody believes you're actually there. It certainly doesn't look professional unless that's literally related to your job somehow. But not a big fan. And yes, Ford, it can be difficult on the eyes sometimes. So, want to stay away from the pink elephant effect of the virtual background if you can. I am much more a fan of the something physical behind you. So if you have the option, it can be something as simple as there's two real easy hacks that you can do. I'm going to stop the share. One is if you purchase those folding room dividers, they'll often come in like 4, 5, 6 panels, something like that. They're not expensive. They come in all different colors, all different materials, from aluminum to kind of paper to wicker to whatever else. They're lightweight. They pop out real fast. They don't take up a lot of room. It's 3-dimensional, which is nice actually for the background. And then when you're done, you just fan fold it back up and stick it in the closet, slide it under the bed or under the couch, put it in the closet of the corner, wherever it goes. But it's very easy to put up, easy to take down, lightweight, inexpensive, and not artificial looking. So that's an easy one. The other thing you can do, I see some of you guys have curtains and things behind you, would like to have the image of curtains. If you don't, you can get a rolling garment rack from Target. What are they, $20? Something along those lines. Stretch it out behind you. So it's got to be something that's at least probably 5 feet long. If you need to get 2 short ones, you can get 2 short ones. And then go to the housewares section and get a couple of like 4-foot, 48-inch curtain panels. Whatever color looks good on you and isn't too ostentatious. And because it needs to go well with your skin tone. I don't look good in anything yellow or green. A yellow or green curtain would not do me well. Just put the curtains on the little garment rack, close them up, put it behind you, and look at that. It looks like you're in a nice office with beautiful curtains hanging down, and you just happen to have them closed like Darren's got. So curtains are a good, easy hack. Again, with the fan folding, there's a little bit of a gradient, a little 3-dimensional feel to it. Again, lightweight, inexpensive, rolls out of the way, literally. All right, back to, there we go. Next stage. You speak to people's conscious and unconscious or subconscious mind. Michael, did you want to ask a question real quick first? Talk to me.
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to this picture thing, what to do. I mean, if I showed you my real background now, it would not work.
Okay, why not?
Because, let's turned it on and off. My apologies, and I will turn off. There is my true background. Okay. So I love, my question was still what to do about a picture that, the picture you put in there when you're not showing a background.
As far as a headshot or something?
Yeah.
Okay. So when I stop my video, that at the moment, okay, so this is not my, part of it will determine on if you're using their account or yours. So when I am using your account, I'm using the Beacon account, just my name shows up. But when I'm on my Zoom, I have a headshot, and it is my professional headshot, or at least one of them that I use, because I want people, it needs to reflect who I am in that moment, how I want you to view me. I'm not going to have one with my kids on a picnic at a birthday party or holiday or, a silly, summer vacation kind of a thing. That's not that doesn't go with the brand that I want to convey in these professional environments. So I would have, the headshot that you've got there is lovely. It's perfectly professional. It's smiling. It's friendly. It's clean. So, I think that's a great one. And
it has hair.
Which can also be digitally enhanced or played with, depending on how you like. So does that answer your question, Michael?
Yes, thank you very much.
Sure, my pleasure. All right, so let's go now to sound, because sound is everything. And I'm actually not going to share the screen at the moment, but we've been talking for the last 30 minutes or so. You've been listening. I'm going to do something, and I want you to tell me how it would change in your mind, how much you would want to continue to listen to me if I sounded like this and led the rest of the conversation, led the rest of the program, the rest of the training, sharing my insights, my expertise, my answers to your questions, etc., sounding like this. How does this sound to you? Any changes? Any change? I sound far away. Anything else? Does it change your focus? Makes you head for the door? Kind of hollow sounding, underwater. It's incongruous to your message. Way to go, Ken, for the 95-cent words. Okay, it seems like I'm not very tech savvy. I'm muffled, I'm unclear, sounds unprofessional, distant, so not intimate. Great comparison or contrast. Okay, so they all basically summarize as yuck. Okay, and that's, again, not really what we're aiming for. How many of you are familiar with the concept of Zoom fatigue? Anybody heard that phrase, that expression, Zoom fatigue? Yeah. So Zoom fatigue, we all sort of generalize it as meaning just sick of seeing ourselves on video. I get that, tired of being on camera, being stuck in the same chair day in and day out, all day, every day. But it goes beyond that. When sound quality is bad because of people's microphones, when sound quality is bad, you kind of have to squint. Do you feel like your brain is squinting, like your ears are squinting to peer through the fog to understand what I'm saying? Like, that's not pleasant. That creates work. That's what's referred to as an increased cognitive burden on the part of the listener. Remember our 3 levels of impact. The ew, I don't like it factor is the emotional. The cognitive is what? I have to work harder to understand what she's saying. That goes back to the emotional, which makes me go, I don't wanna have to work hard. I don't wanna have to concentrate. So the motivation to focus, and then how that makes you feel about me, is equally negative on an emotional gut level. And I don't like her, she's making me work. I don't enjoy listening to her anymore, or at least I did less than I did before. So all of this negative, that's when you have to strain, work harder to just identify what my words are, much less what they mean or what you think or how you feel about them. And then you have to sustain that heightened level of concentration for 4, 6, 8 hours a day and longer sometimes. That sustained level of vigilance literally creates fatigue, mental fatigue, emotional fatigue, and physical fatigue. So now, watch this. You've gotten used to me on this kind of muffled tin can microphone. I'm going to switch back to my good mic. And you don't need a Cadillac of a mic like mine, but you do most likely need to upgrade to something beyond whatever is embedded in your computer. I want you to be mindful when I shift over to what your physiological as well as mental reaction is, what the gut level instinct changes. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Now I'm going to run the rest of the program from here. Does that change how you feel? Did you feel something almost click inside? What happened? Put it in the chat. What happened the minute I switched back to this? What did you think? What did you feel emotionally or physically? Right, suddenly you feel like we're in the same room. There's a connection. Suddenly your attention was grabbed. It was more exciting sounding. There was more energy to it. I bet if I could zoom in on your faces and see your pupils would have dilated. And if your ears could exhale, they would have gone, oh, thank you. Your body literally released tension by having better sound quality. I sound more confident. It feels more real. Aren't all of these things part of that brand that you wrote down? You want to feel like you're in the room together. It's refreshing. It makes you say, thank you. That's important. These are all the reactions we want people to have. Now think about when you're in a room full of people or a virtual room, 5 people, 10 people, however many it is. You can be on one of 2 extremes. Where you don't want to be is where some other people sound like this, and then you talk. And when you talk, you sound like this. Because what does that mean? That means everybody else is having a conversation, and then you sound like Charlie Brown's teacher. And I know you know what that means, right? Wah, 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 wah. And everybody else hears that and they go, ugh, I can't be bothered listening to this. I think I'll check my email. I'll multitask while you talk. Remember what multitask, the new definition is? Pay attention to everything except you. What you do want to be on, and what you have a much better chance of being on, is the other end of that spectrum, where most people sound like this, and we just sort of deal with it. But then you talk, and everybody goes, wait, what? Who's talking now? That sounds important. It just sounds like it should be more important. I better pay attention and figure out who this person is and what they're saying. They sound more authoritative. They sound more knowledgeable. They sound more expert. they're saying something I probably need to know. It sounds worthy in a way that your message does not sound worthy with poor sound. Choose your brand. All right, let's hit the last couple of motions here. So as far as your sound is concerned, whether you have a headset or a standalone mic doesn't really matter. As long as the sound is better. Some people are self-conscious wearing headsets and they feel like, oh, it looks kind of funny. No, it doesn't. It doesn't look any stranger than walking outside and seeing people in masks. Everybody's used to it. And frankly, if the choice for most people is between I have to look at you with a headset on, but I get sound like this, or you take the headset off for me, but you sound like this, please do me the favor and wear the headset. Nobody's going to care. When you look at them online, you want to make sure you read the reviews and see what kind of comments are, and you want to look for comfort, because comfort is rarely a feature in the specs that you're looking at, but the reviewers will certainly tell you. If it's, I could wear it all day. Good. You don't want something that's going to be pressing on your ears or squeezing your head, etc. But the headset is consistent sound. The standalone mic, you have to make sure that you're using it right. And if you can see in the picture, it comes with a little tripod, that particular model. Most of them come with a little tripod or stand, but that means it has to be right in front of you. Most people are like, oh, that's inconvenient. It's in the way. So they stick it off in the corner. This is a $500 mic. If I move it off to the corner so it's not straight in front of my face, do you hear a difference? Do you hear a difference in the sound quality overall? I'm not changing the way that I'm talking, but it's like I just flushed $450 worth out of $500. Now, again, you don't need that much, but why, regardless of what you're investing in it, it should do its job that you paid for it to do. If you have a standalone mic, this is the optimum distance between you and your microphone. Thumb touches your chin, pinky touches the mic. That's how far away you want to be. So if it's like 18, 24 inches away, it's not doing you justice. It's not doing what you paid for it to do. Let's talk for a second about AirPods, because most people have them or some version of them. I do. I'm an Apple user. Look, I have my AirPods, I have my iPhone, I have my iMac, I have my MacBook laptop, all that kind of stuff. Jobs and I need to have a conversation one of these days, because these babies were intended to make music sound great to me, not to make me sound great to you. For $179, the microphones attached to them were an afterthought. They are lousy. They don't do a good job. They may or may not be actively better than whatever is already embedded into your computer. Same thing if you get one of those peripheral cameras, like a Logitech HD camera, which is what I'm using, that has a microphone embedded into it, but that's even worse than my computer mic. So test them out. There are much better microphones. Just get a standalone or a headset mic, something that is intended for microphones. Bose, Jabra, they're really made to have great sound for you, not have you produce great sound for others. All right. So, and we talked about the framing, so we'll deal with that later. All right, here's my action step for you. Here's your homework. What are 2 changes you're going to make in preparation for leading, or at least being part of, your next virtual meeting or event, interview or otherwise? What are you going to do differently? Write it down. 2 steps you're going to take. Because this is where it translates from passive knowledge to, once you write it down, especially if you put it in your calendar, it becomes real. Yes, and I really appreciate the, let's see. So Michael, as far as your question regarding keeping the, keeping the sound loop in the mic, that's also part of why it's not great to use the laptop mic, because the speaker is so close to the microphone itself. Often you get that feedback, that echo. When it's this far away from the computer, it helps to reduce it. You do also have the option, of course, a headset. If you have a headset overall with the boom mic, then that's not a problem, but you can use earphones of some sort to listen. But again, from this distance, it's not usually a problem. There's always the risk, unless you have a headset on. When I'm doing my podcast recording, I always wear my big, these big things, just so that there's absolutely no feedback in it, but I need that sound quality in the recording. And yes, Susan, great suggestion. This training that I'm doing for you today, this is a super curtailed version as a gift to Beacon in, solidarity in all of us being professionals working together. It's my gift to you. When I'm doing this training for my clients, for corporate teams and leadership groups, et cetera, it's a half a day intensive. And there's also an online program I'll tell you about in a second. But the idea is that we always do it in workshop where we do breakouts, and we'll have other like 3, 4, 5 people do a group and say, hey, everybody, how do I sound? Because you don't know how you sound, but you've been listening to me, and then 4 or 5 people in a room, you can compare your sound to each other and say, scale of 1 to 5, how's my sound compared to everybody else? How is it? Plug these in. Try your laptop mic, try your camera mic, try your standalone mic. Comparatively speaking, which one is best? And you can really do it on your own as well. If you have do a Zoom or whatever solo and just talk through, hit the record button, say, okay, well, now I'm going to shift over to my AirPods. Okay, testing, 1, 2, 3, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Now I'm testing with my laptop mic, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Now I'm testing with my camera mic, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And then stop the recording, go back and listen to the recording, and you'll see which one sounds best. And you've announced which device it is, so you can remember to default to that one again. So there's lots of ways to do it. My external camera is sitting on top of my computer screen. I have a 20 something inch desktop iMac, so it's there. And otherwise, I would love to hear your final thoughts, aha moments. You've got just a minute or two before the end. I'll share 1 or 2 other little details, but would love to know what your takeaways are. Share with me one takeaway, aha moment, and with everybody else as well. And the more you share in the chat on this, when you see everybody else's, it helps you to digest and retain everything else too, because you see somebody else's aha moment, you go, oh, right. Don't want to forget about that one. I didn't write it down, but that's a good reminder. So this is where you help each other be successful, by driving in the key points. I have a gift for everybody. My book is called Speaking to Influence, Mastering Your Leadership Voice. So whether you're virtual or otherwise, it's something that you will, when you open your mouth, what happens? Does it land as you intend it? Or do you have those moments where you go, that sounded better in my head? This book helps to solve that problem. So I will share. Yes. Okay. So I'll put in the chat. Let's see, a couple of things. One is a link to download my free, I'm going to give you a free ebook copy of this. And it is, let's see, can I spell this correctly? Speaking to influence.com/free copy -STI. Okay. So that's where you can go to get a free ebook. And if what we went over today really made a dent for you, made a difference, clicked, and this was just the fast kind of 40-minute version. If you want to see more, go to virtualinfluence.today. I've taken this program and a whole lot more and built it out into a complete online self-paced course where it's going to help you do everything from really get through your brand to working on the setup, the equipment, but also how to run meetings, how to maximize engagement, how to create slides that are going to really maintain people's attention, how to make sure that you are the star of the show. So everything from the fundamentals up through the engagement component. And it's a bunch of modules with mini videos, 5 minutes, 10 minutes a piece, worksheets to go along with it, especially if you're in transition. This is something that you really want to consider. You've got the time so that you know, not just when you interview, but when you show up for the new job, you're already going to wow them, and they're going to have that sense of trust in this just instinctively instilled, because you're just so much further leaps and bounds above the rest. They won't know why, but in their gut, they're going to go, I trust this person. They seem to have it, that confidence, that command, that relatability, all those qualities that most people don't know how to convey. So I would encourage you and invite you to check out virtualinfluence.today. So with that, I am happy to stick around and answer any other additional questions. This is my email address. Feel free to drop me a line separately, but otherwise I can stick around for whatever else you would like. And I'll stop the share there. And thank you for sharing your feedback and your comments. More upper torso, test the mic, all those kinds of things, better headsets.
Laura?
Yes. Hi, Megan.
Thanks. This is great today. I have a question just about my own background and trying to have something physical there, but whether or not with the screen thing would add some texture, or whether this is great, because that's what I want.
Well, I think it's great that you have a nice colored blouse on, because your background is so just white. Having a little green plant behind you is good. Having the little, decoration there adds a little bit of texture dimension. The fact that you're in a corner, it's a little off-centered, that adds a little bit of depth to otherwise a plain white wall. So I think that's fine. If you wanted to add a screen or something, you can do that. But, if anything, let me pin your video here a little bit better. If you wanted to have a slightly taller plant, just for a little more, so it's not just all along kind of shoulder level, you could do that. But you just want to keep it simple, or a very simple image on the wall, a picture of some sort. But yeah, so you've got the picture that looks like it's sitting on the counter as opposed to having it actually mounted if you wanted to mount it, for the little variety height wise. But I'm okay. I like the corner. I don't think you need the screen.
But would it be helpful to put something else over on this side, or does the lack of balance not?
So it all depends on what it is, and gotcha. I am not an interior designer. That's not one of my God-given gifts. So, but less is more.
Helpful.
Yeah. So, okay. It really depends on what it is. You want to make sure it's not distracting, or that it's at least brand consistent.
Okay.
Whatever that is. And color matters. So everybody should always show up in color. If you're going to wear a gray suit or something like that, have a pop of color somewhere, because otherwise we all tend to look like human oatmeal, bland neutral walls and a bland neutral suit and bland neutral everything else, brown, beige, something rather. Human oatmeal is not a good look. That doesn't say confident authority, all that kind of good stuff. So some sort of color.
Great. Thanks.
Yep. Thank you. Other questions?
I just more of a comment, Laura, that,
sure.
A couple of things. First of all, if anybody else is ever presenting, I think a good sign of whether you're having impact is how many people that started are still on at the end. And up until 1 o'clock, when some people had to drop off, we were 36 for 36. So clearly there's a lot of value in what you said. And also I would suggest to anybody, if you're in an organization now, not only for job seekers, but this kind of content is something that can really impact business. It impacts retention of employees when they feel like you're developing them. I would really suggest that you consider bringing it to your organization as well. So just some thoughts for you there.
Sure. Thank you, Ken. And I've got some requests. I just put my email in the chat. Oh, and I just realized I did not upload. Let me share right now my recommended. This is a list that I use for my podcast. I usually share, and I would invite everybody to check it out, please. If you're feeling a little bit of love, go to speakingtoinfluence.com. You'll see the podcast there, and it's got also, whether you like Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, etc. Give it, pick that link and give us 5 stars. Put in a little rating. It's always appreciated. All right, so I send my prospective guests this recommended equipment list just to make sure that they show up in a way that they feel like reflects on them well. It represents them well, helps them look and sound their best as my guests, but also representing themselves and their organizations. And it's something that is just as useful in any other context. So you should be able to download that straight from the chat. Let's see, Michael, tell me about your question. Recommendations on sharing a screen while still having your face or presence in the video. In part, it depends on what platform you have to use. With Zoom, it's very possible, and I just did it, to be able to see myself in a little thumbnail while I'm still sharing my screen. I don't like, with Zoom, if you click in the view option, which is in the upper right-hand corner, you've got speaker or gallery. When you're in share screen mode, it will give you the option to do it in gallery, in speaker, or in standard or side by side. So you get all the faces down the side. I don't like that. I'd rather have it in standard so I can drag all your faces up along the top of the screen close to my camera, including my own. So I then can look at you, and you feel like I'm looking at you because I'm looking really close to the camera, but I can still look down and see my screen, which is not far away, but it's not like I'm looking down here at the bottom of my screen like Teams makes you do. I can't stand Teams. But that's, everybody has their preferences. So does that help? And thank you, Charlie. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I hate Teams as well. I'm always like this. I'm always looking to the side in Teams to write stuff. But the question, I guess, is I've seen people do presentations like sharing slides or even, animated presentations, but you also see their face. So you have them presenting and speaking as well as what you're sharing.
Sure. So when I do my screen share, and I'll do it again here. Come on, share. So when I do my screen share, do you not see my face? Or can you see me?
Yeah, but only right now. If I'd have to switch to speaker to have you pop up, really. I see everybody.
Okay, so you should have, right. So you have the option of toggling as a viewer, you can change. But for me as presenter right now, I see my slides and full screen, but I also see a strip of faces at the top and I can change that. So you have, depending on, again, what's your platform, because that changes everything. But play with all the options that are there and see what's most facilitative to you. I like standard version for Zoom because it allows me to see as many faces as possible and move them to a place that's convenient for me. But what you as the user or as the participant sees, it has no bearing on what I see on my end. We both have the option of choosing our own settings for our own experience in the moment.
Thank you.
Charlie, how are you? Good to see you.
Great to see you, Laura. Wonderful job. Wonderful job. We've been at this for 2 years on Zoom. What has the research said about the effectiveness of the medium? So, for example, is it better to be standing up or sitting down when presenting? I see you're sitting down. I see a lot of people present sitting down. I see people standing up. Is there any kind of data on that in terms of the effectiveness and impact?
I can't speak to data. I can speak to a truckload of experience and on both sides. And what I will tell you is that it is about two things: energy and control. And for some people, especially those who are naturally more kind of subdued personalities, and those who get a little more gun shy, self-conscious on video, if this is the energy that you tend to exude when you're in the virtual world, then you may want to stand up. If that helps you to, get a little more energized, you feel more motion for yourself, great, use that. The problem with that is that when people stand up, they tend to fidget. They tend to shift their weight back and forth from foot to foot, or they tend to rock on their feet. Guys seem to do like this front to back rock and forth. It's like Laurel and Hardy. Was it Oliver Hardy was always playing with his tie and rock back and forth? It's very odd. So if you can't stand still, if you look like you're dancing and you're otherwise in and out of screen, depending on how close you are, I don't want to see somebody doing this. Where can you demonstrate better control and authority? Because you don't want one to undermine the other. I mean, I attended a program a couple of months ago, and one of the presenters, when she was presenting, God help me, she was here as she was talking. And I thought, what is wrong with you? I really wanted to reach through and just smack her. And that's, what is wrong with you? That doesn't even say that you want to be here, much less that anybody else should. So, I mean, when I present, I am sitting, but if I'm just listening, I have my back rest and I'm in the chair, but I'm not teaching from here. When I speak, I sit up. I'm using it more like a stool. So if you have one of those yoga ball chairs that helps with posture, one of those ergonomic chairs, try that. And for that matter, if you're going to stand, you really need to then adjust everything else. You need to adjust the height of your screen. You need to adjust. Do you have a standing desk? Okay, do it. But then you can't keep shifting back and forth either. You need to set it up so that your camera is parallel with your head. And all these kinds of things I go through in the online course, by the way. So if you get to the virtualinfluence.today page and scroll to the bottom, you'll see where you can open up the table of contents, and there's truckloads of little mini lessons on all these details and more. But it's energy and control, and where can you find your best balance? So for me, I just sit up. I don't, my back isn't touching the chair, although back rest is hugely important for otherwise having that back support. So whatever feels good to you and allows you to have your most energy without being kind of all over the place. Does that answer your question, Charlie?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Any other questions? Let's see, Megan asked what I recommend for taking a drink of water. I agree. Look, I've got mine, like coffee, sort of depends on what mode you're in. So be careful of two things. Yes, you should hydrate. Because look, if we were in person, you would be drinking. We wouldn't be hiding it. So why? It's like eating. People are so like afraid of being on camera when you're having like a lunch meeting. Why? If we went to lunch together, you wouldn't hold up a napkin like this and say, I don't want you to watch me chew. So why are we trying to make this so awkwardly sterile? I don't get that. But what branding is on your logo, is on your mug? What phrase? I have a mug that my cousin gave me for Christmas last year. And I didn't even think. In one morning, I just grabbed it out of the closet, and the words are only on one side of it. And I'm talking to a client, and all of a sudden he goes, "What does your mug say?" And I looked at it, and I realized it says, "I'm silently correcting your grammar." And so I burst out laughing. I was like, "Okay, I have to fess up," and I showed him, and he cracked up. But fortunately, we had a good relationship, and he appreciated the humor and that, knows what I do for a living and all that kind of stuff. So it worked, but it could have been worse, depending on who it is, what your mug says, what picture's on it, so just be mindful. And look, this is a big old thing, but I specifically looked for something clear, not screaming pink or bright, whatever is. And I don't want to have to, tip it up like this. I like that it's clear, so it's not as eye-catching. And this way I can just raise the straw and it's not blocking my face as I'm drinking from it. Plus, when it's this big and you tip it up in front of the camera, it gets really distorted as far as size is concerned. So I think those are little distractions. So, to me, straw and muted colors or otherwise clear, it took me forever to find this stupid thing. So, but those little details again kind of matter. I think it's a great question, Megan. Thank you. What else? Let me scroll here. Okay, Ken's got his PSA to everybody there. So please make sure if this was good, talk to them about all the other programs that are part of Beacon. Look at membership. They have some great programs.
Laura, Charlie again.
Hey, Charlie.
I know that Ford and Ken have a huge budget to spend on speakers like yourself.
Excellent. I'll send you the bill.
What can we do to help you, Laura?
Thank you very much for asking. For those of you who either are currently working at whatever company or otherwise looking for work in larger organizations or otherwise your own business owners, I am an executive coach. The difference between me and your more traditional executive coaches is that I'm not going to help you make one blessed business decision. But once you've made them, I help you get the buy-in you need to get the results that you want. So if you are in a leadership role and you're tired of being ignored because your words aren't landing with the impact that you want them to have, that's when you call me, and we make sure that your words, your presence, everything shows up so that you're conveying the leader that you know that you are to everybody else. Presentations, if you are looking for speakers for events, looking to do trainings, not just for virtual influence like this, which of course, I'm happy to bring to your organizations. If you're looking for speakers for conferences, or for that matter, if you're part of an organization that's going to be putting on a virtual conference, I do trainings for the speaker lineup, because there are many speakers who are fabulous on stage, not on screen. And that sucks the life out of the conference, and that waters down the brand of the organization. Because if people go, the conference is okay, then they're not going to sign up again next year. So anything along those lines, if you feel like your voice needs to be heard, your message needs to land, you want to have the impact, and you're in a leadership role for yourself or for your team or someone you're trying to groom, succession planning, all that kind of fun stuff. They're the technical experts, but what's missing, we'll fill in that gap. So thank you so much for asking, Charlie. And if nothing else, go to my website, sign up for my, at the bottom of vocalimpactproductions.com, join the newsletter, and subscribe for the podcast. Free tips every day, or excuse me, every week.
And Laura, I think you mentioned something about you have a program that's available. I'm sorry if I missed more detail on that, but maybe you could remind us.
Sure. You mean the online program? So if you go to, helps if I put it in the right place. Vocal impact, nope, we're wrong one, virtual influence.today. This is, if you take today's program and make it kind of times 10, but broken down into lots of little 5 and 10 minute videos to help you go from soup to nuts. It is a transformational program where you will make your baseline video in the beginning and you'll make your final video at the end, and you will see the difference between where you started from that, was good enough. And then you get to the end and you see where you become when you have all these little tools and you implement them one by one, cognitive, emotional, behavioral impact for each step that you make. And at the end, you then compare before and after, and you go, I thought that was good enough. And you realize how happy you are with where you landed. So being able to convey that confidence because you feel confident, because you suddenly get how much better you are afterward, and that everybody else will see it and feel it. That's what this program is intended to do. So thank you, Ken. Other questions? Still got 26 people on. I'm impressed.
I have another question.
Yeah.
I'm trying to leave room for
Sure.
others. Often in a small group where we'll have more dialogue and talking between us.
Sure.
One of the things that I started to do is I mute myself typically, unless I know I'm going to speak.
Yes.
And I started doing that just to help me pause before maybe interrupting somebody, right? But at this point, I'm kind of curious if, what does the mute or don't mute, and just generally.
So much of it has to do with the culture of the organization, right? Do people naturally hold back? Is it like pulling teeth to get anyone to participate where you're not going to be stepping on somebody's toes? Or is it basically a verbal basketball game where everybody's vying for the floor and everybody's talking and interrupting each other, and you need a little bit more control to make sure that there's decorum, that there's protocol, that there's respect for listening to each other, and everybody feels heard and everybody has a turn to participate. Part of that is what we go through in that course and some of the later modules, how to manage that, how to create that culture that you want, because it's not always healthy in the way that groups tend to participate. Or if anything, it's the 80-20 rule. 20 people do 80% of the talking, and how to balance that out a little bit. So these are all things we have to consider. Their groups had established cultures and expectations for behaviors in person. And then online, things just sort of happened and it didn't translate. So we have to work harder to be explicit in choosing and creating that dynamic of participation that we want. It does have to be conscious. So that's why I gave suggestions in the beginning. If you noticed, there's a piece that I modeled at the very beginning. I said, here's how I want you to participate. I give you a menu of options. At certain times, there would be different things. As far as tools that you could use, when I recommended you keep your microphone on mute, when you unmuted, that in this medium, in this context, I'm fine with you unmuting and just interrupting, because I know that you guys as professionals, and I've spoken with Beacon before, you're not going to be interrupting me every 90 seconds. I will be able to get through my content. So if somebody just wanted to chime in, fine, it adds to the energy of the conversation. And I have the right to be able to say, you know what, Megan, I'm going to put a pin in that conversation, in that question, because I'm going to get to it in about 10 minutes. And if I don't answer it to your satisfaction at the end, please bring it up again. Right? I have the choice to do with that as I please. I can entertain a question. I don't have to answer it in the moment. I have that choice. Yeah. So giving people, and somewhere in, I think, module 6 or module 5 is looking at how to teach people explicitly, how to train people to show up the way you want them to show up, to engage, to participate the way you want. You have to tell people when to participate, how not to participate. You're going to need to tell them in advance, during, how you do the reminders. There's a lot of little things that suddenly are like, really, do I have to go through this many? Yes. Yes, you do. If you want it to go the way that you want it to go. And most people haven't thought through that either. How do I want this to flow? What do I want the nature of the engagement moment to moment to be? When do I want higher or lower levels of participation? When do I want people to give me 15 minutes, just get through this stuff and then have as free for all discussion as they want? Is that what I need? In which case I must explicitly state both what to anticipate from the start so people know what to expect, and when we're going from point A to point B or part A to part B, so that they know, okay, this is the part where I can participate more now, or where I should stay quiet now and let her talk. People need rules and instructions so that they know explicitly what is expected of them.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else?
That's my last one so far.
All right. Well, my email is in the chat. So if you think of others, drop me a line. Find me on LinkedIn. I invite everybody to connect with me if we're not already connected. Just please, if you connect with me on LinkedIn, just reference Beacon. It can be one word, Beacon. I don't care, but just let me know that this is where we met, because I get requests from all sorts of people to connect, and I'm not going to just connect with anybody because I popped up on their screen. To me, a connection is a valued relationship. So I want to know where we came from.
Beacon is the premier executive networking organization serving the Mid-Atlantic region. To learn more, go to beaconforlife.org.